Great Britain, China, and
here's the address of the Emperor of Japan. Most of the people in Japan, hardly any of them actually ever heard him speak before, where he's
war against the United States and Great Britain for desire to preserve by ourselves the empire's existence in East Asia.
Reason I'm shooting this, it's going to cover the signing of the surrender on the Missouri. Got a few little things I want to throw in there that hardly anybody knows about. MacArthur had the flag that Perry carried initially into Japan flown over to him, and that's the flag that's still on the Missouri at Pearl Harbor if you ever see it. There was a couple of reasons for it. One of my uncles happened to be on one of the planes. He flew it out there, and the man stayed up like 36 hours delivering this flag to MacArthur, and it was hung over the proceedings. There's very few pictures of it, but anyway, that's the same flag that's on the veranda at the Missouri right now. There was a couple of reasons for it. One, to remind the Japanese of the initial Americans going over there with Admiral Perry, but it didn't have the same number of stars as a normal American flag, and I believe one of the reasons he did it, it was a provisional peace. It was the end of the war, but it was a provisional peace. There were a whole lot of Japanese forces left at the Japanese Navy and the Japanese Air Force had been decimated by the United States. And here's a count of the troops they still had out. So that provisional peace was signed aboard the Missouri, and I believe he put that flag on there to cover his ass, if you will. So here's the number of the forces still out. And there was no battle for the island of Formosa. Like I said, it was a provisional peace, and that was why that flag was put on the Missouri, to cover himself in case it went southways. And he's just announcing. You can hear it in the background. If you go through the lists of, there was a bunch of Jeep carriers made that never went into the mothball Navy that was along here. And the agreement that if the peace held, the emperor would keep his gold that was in Switzerland. There were actually Japanese subs still operating out of Peru, where there's a lot of Japanese people there, and they finally gave up after a couple of years, but they were doing so little damage it didn't count as hurting the peace. But anyway, so they pulled off of Taiwan, and a lot of those Jeep carriers that were never mothballed were given to rebuild Japan's infrastructure. So if your parents had a Toyota that was built in the early 70s, chances are it was made with metal out of one of those Jeep carriers. So that was the provisional peace, and that's why MacArthur had that flag brought over. And I'll finish it off here with him signing it. And there you go.